Brett. Sunday morning. How are you? Looking very zhuzh. Did you go to church?
Cheeky fucker. Did I go to church? My church is in the cloud and revolves around the data.
It does. And I'm sitting in my wife's church because it's the only place I could find some peace and quiet in this house. So I'm in her office here with all her decoration stuff and what have you. So I'm feeling quite pretty and zhuzhed up. But we're not talking about this crap. Brett, assessments, cloud, getting into the cloud, assessments, benchmark. Take us through it, because this is the make or break. This is the big one.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. So we've been talking about the return on investment and your decision to go cloud. I mean, this is the stage where you go, okay, I think I'm going to do this. The problem is there's a lot of cloud providers out there.
Yeah.
Well, as TerraFlow, we 100% bought into the hyperscaler. We love all the hyperscalers. Their offerings are phenomenal. It's secure. It really does the job. And this is huge amounts of compute with huge amounts of technical resource. We're not fans of local data centers calling themselves cloud and running some virtual machines. And, no thanks. We're really about trying to solve and scale your business. So the first step, I'm going to jump straight into it, Mike. We're going to try and keep this to 10 minutes because we want it on LinkedIn, don't we?
We do, that algorithm. But I'll keep you honest on the time, Brett.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. So let's jump into this. This is day 3 of the challenge. It's really all about assessment. So we're going to touch very quickly on how do you go about deciding who to use in your cloud, in the world of cloud. So the first step, we spend a lot of time assessing clouds for all our customers. And it really is dependent on what the customer's architecture is like, the type of data, the type of applications that you're running, the network topography that you have in place. And more importantly, it really depends on your digital strategy. So where do you want to take your business? I see at the moment, probably 75%, Mike, of the businesses that we're dealing with really keep coming to us saying, we want to be an AI business. How do we make it work? And that's the whole precipice around TerraFlow, is that our jobs are to make it work. And this is one of the early steps in making this happen. But to do it, you've really got to have a set of guiding principles. Because evaluating, or even just if you just focus purely on the hyperscalers, they will each bring you such different solutions and architectures and different price points and discounts. And it is so incredibly difficult to get right. So we're going to give you guys a couple of tips. The first one is, what kind of guiding principles should you be looking at? So the first one is modernizing your business to make AI work. I think that's really important. We're all sitting on very legacy infrastructure. What does it take from an IT point of view to have an operationalized AI business? Every business will be digital. Every business will be AI driven. So that's a fundamentally important principle. The next one is focusing on continuous improvements. Guys, we live in this flexible world. You cannot be locking yourselves into 5 years of buying hardware or locking down to get a discount on a particular piece of license. You need to be looking at, how do you create your CI/CD environments? How do you create DevOps environments? How do you enable yourself to adopt a new piece of technology? And guys, every 2-3 months, something brand new comes out, and it's going to be important for your business. So you need to be able to easily change and move into that world without being constrained. So that's very important. Future-proofing hybrid cloud architectures. The reason why we look at that is it's very difficult to do in a complete lift and shift. You're often left with lots of legacy applications that need to follow different paths. And our next day, we will talk about different migration paths that you need to consider. So you're always going to have some form of hybrid cloud architecture. And you know what? One day, 1 year, Amazon's thrashing Google on pricing. You want to get your infrastructure loaded up there. The next year, Azure is killing everyone else, and you want to move your compute there. So really, you want flexibility across this hybrid cloud architecture. But don't overcomplicate it, guys. There's some brilliant technologies out there, like an Anthos, that is going a long way to making this a real reality. And the real reality is a year or two away. Finally, pricing transparency is incredibly important. I can't stress that more. Why? Because, it's so difficult to figure out what's right. So take what you have in your architecture, go onto the public pricing tools, and that's what you're going to compare. As easy as that. Don't complicate it. And then don't lock yourself into vendors. If anything, aim yourself for a short-term commitment, maybe a year, so you get some kind of discount. And also you want to show some commitment to the vendor of choice. So guys, use these 5 core principles to help you understand how you're going to do your assessment. There's a lot more to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to deal with that in day 4. Why? Because you really need to understand what you're going to assess, how you're going to try get it to a point where you're comparing apples with apples. So Mike, we've been through quite a few of these at the moment, right? It's been a learning exercise.
We have, and I think you know what, Brett. When I look at those principles, I think if you go back to our initial the day 1 around the why on cloud, and you can start to understand how those principles are coming through, and we do see how different vendors try and manipulate around those principles. Certainly on the lock-ins, on the short-term commitments, on pricing discounts, and it's a very, very difficult one to really understand around pricing, because that's obviously where a lot of the vendors are trying to win on a straight pricing analysis and a comparison. But it's not as simple as that, and it's not as black and white as that.
And Mike, you're right. It is quite complex. So what we often see is we'll go into clients and they've spent a year doing assessments, different vendors coming with different things, and it's so confusing. You go into a spin. We'll do an assessment in under a week, and we help you make a decision as quickly as you can. Because guess what, guys? If you follow these principles and you've made the wrong decision, well, it's easy. You can move out of it. The only time you can't is once you've made this year-long, 1-year commit. But
Brett, I think, sorry to interrupt there, probably the most important thing around this assessment is the internal motivation on why you need to go on cloud. Because if you're looking at this becomes your internal sales tool. It goes back to the board. You can substantiate your arguments. You can justify what you're actually doing, and you've done due process. So it's actually a very, very important first step, because it lays the foundation. And I think tomorrow we're going to talk about some of the challenges around the assessment, looking a bit more into the assessment, because it really is the critical first step.
Yeah. And we'll also talk about benchmarks. Often you find yourself where you can't make your mind up. So you need to check your performance and price and make sure it fits your architecture and that things can work. So benchmarks also become important. And we'll do that as a separate section, Mike. It's a super important tool to go to your executives and to your board with.
100%. Brett, thank you. Lovely to chat. We'll catch you in the next one tomorrow.
Cheers, Mike. Thanks,
Cheers, man. Bye.